Hey guys, it's Holly from The Run Experience. Today we're talking half marathon tips and logistics. This is your first half marathon. I'm going to get you to that starting line feeling ready to go. Okay guys, so today we are focusing on race day. So shout out to those of you who this is your first half marathon. You're getting geared up for what that start is going to look like. And for those of you, maybe a veteran or so, maybe you're just looking for new ways to kind of make that morning a little less pain-free, a little more pain-free. So to get into it, let's start with getting to the race. You should know the course beforehand. Usually you're sent a packet or something in your email about a week or two before, letting you know all the details of everything going on that day. But you're going to want to know, is it a point-to-point race where you're starting in one area and finishing at another? Is it starting in somewhere super secluded where maybe parking isn't nearby, but they have you bussed to the very start line? Is there certain situations where you're basically not going to be able to get there until a certain time? All these things you want to know before you get there. So getting to the race, allotting plenty of time so that you're not rushing to that start. Also going along with this is making sure you have your bib, your number that goes on the front. It's super important for tracking you during that half marathon, so they can't actually get your time correctly calculated without that on you and ready to go. So a lot of times you can pick that up the week of at various locations near the start, or you can just pick it up race morning, but be sure you know when and where you're getting that. So getting to that race, allotting enough time. I like to recommend getting to near the start line, right at the beginning of the race, between 45 minutes to an hour beforehand. That gives you plenty of warm-up time to use the portage on, make sure you get the last bit of food, whatever you're doing, with no rush whatsoever. You want this to be your race day. You've put so much preparation in, and you don't want to get it all thrown away right at the end, right before you start. So that is the first section, is talking about how to get there on time. Okay guys, so you're at the race, you've gotten there with plenty of time to go. Let's talk pre-race logistics. So once you've gotten to that start area, there are a few things you want to be aware of as to where they are in relation to the start. You want to know where the restrooms are. These lines are super long a lot of the time, but they do move quickly, so don't be overwhelmed by that fact. It's before a long run. Every single person is probably getting in that line at some point or another, so be aware of that. Roll with the punches. You've gotten there with plenty of time, so nothing to worry about there. Also know where the actual start line and the corral are. If they do have a corral, a lot of times when they set you up in waves, if it's a bigger race, you'll actually be lining up in a separate section before, several minutes before you're actually going across that start line. So being aware of where that is, starting to look for people with the same letter or number on their bib as you is a good idea, so you can just be aware of where that start is. So portage on, start line, and then also just a good area where you can warm up, where you can kind of clear your head. A lot of runners are going to be scattered around. Finding a good space to kind of seclude yourself for a warm up is always a good idea. And lastly, make sure you know where the drop bag station is if you are going to drop off any sweats or clothes for the finish. A lot of times if it is a point-to-point race, you're going to be finishing at a different area and you're going to be covered in sweat. As soon as you start to cool down, you're going to be freezing. So you're going to want something there at the end to put on or change into afterwards, especially if you don't have someone meeting you right there at the end. Make sure you don't put anything valuable in there, that goes without saying, but no phones, no expensive sunglasses, stuff like that. You kind of want just your sweats and clothes in there. Also, if a lot of races have you donate clothes, if you want to throw them off right at the start. So if you want to wear something on top of what you're running in that you're good to just throw off right at the beginning, a lot of places have places for you to do that. So just be aware of which option you're going for and get to that drop station well before the start. So those are pre-race logistics. Make sure you know all of this when you get there. All right, guys, so if you've watched any of our other videos before, you know how big we are on warming up. It makes a gigantic difference in your long runs, your short runs, and especially on race day. Speaking from personal experience, I used to just kind of think, especially for a long run, I'm going to get warmed up. I have plenty of time in those first few miles to start sweating. Last week I had a race that I actually really focused like a 15-minute warm-up on, and it was night and day for the race. So it's really, really important. I'm speaking firsthand, so I'm going to share with you what I did. For the warm-up, about 15 to 20 minutes for it. The biggest thing here is you're going to want to start moving, sweating, activating those muscles that are going to be working for you in each step of that run. To get started, I like to just kind of start warming up the chest and upper body as well as the hips with some light movement. Maybe you've been sitting in a car for an hour or so getting there, so you just want to start getting everything moving. To start, we'll just start with some little arm circles, so just starting small. Just starting to activate.
I'm just going to go around here, you stay.
And then you just go a little bit bigger. Taking your time here, you're just gonna start to feel everything warm up. And as you get bigger, you can start playing with the speed. You can do a few really fast, and then alternating to go a few slow. So again, you're starting small and you're working your way bigger. You'll then reverse the circles, so you'll start rotating forward, small. I like to keep the palms forward. Again, that keeps everything dialed in here the same way you're gonna be when you're running. So small, getting a little bit bigger, and a little bigger, and then you can play with that speed a little faster, and then slowing it down. Notice I'm not gonna let my ribs splay out and I'm arching and everything. You're still gonna have your form dialed in, start to feel that core pull against you, and you wanna keep everything turned on all the way through. So once we're warmed up there, you can do a few open and close here with the arm swing. You can then do a few bent over, so nice straight back, hips sit back and bend, and then you can start continuing right here. And lastly, you can do some little twists side to side, which will help start to wake up that spine, which we know when we start running plays a huge part in making sure everything's even as you go. So that's the upper body. Next, I want to get into some leg swings, get those hips warmed up. Like I said, if you've been sitting, these guys are probably a little tight and they haven't really woken up yet, so start small. I like to start right on one leg, trying to stabilize. Hang on to something if you need to, but working on that balance is a good way to start to fire that other leg for support too. So just starting small. You want to keep everything parallel. Try not to swing that open just yet. You want to be really focused on staying right in line here. Nice light arm swing to counterbalance. As it gets a little bit easier, you can go a little bit higher. Going for about 15 to 20 of these. Same with the arm circles, about 15 to 20 of those is a good number to start with. Once you've done about 15 to 20, you can kick this leg forward into a lunge, and you can put this hand right on the foot here and one right next to it, and you can go for some of those hip circles, which we always like to encourage. As you get warmed up, going bigger and bigger, the whole thigh is trying to move, rotating around the knee. About 10 that direction, 10 the other direction. And then you can finish with some little hamstring flosses just like this. As straight as you can go, you'll notice it starts to loosen up and you can go a little bit further. Trying to drop that head and relax, coming all the way back down to stretch that hip flexor out. So, done the leg swings, kicked out to the lunge, did the circles, did the hamstring flosses. I'll flip around, I'll do the other leg, everything repeated. Again, for those leg swings, don't be afraid to hang on to something, but when you feel like you've sort of got your balance, it's always a good idea to at least test that. You'll be out there for several miles and you want to know that you're on 2 feet. Next, we are going to get into just starting to get a little bit of sweat going, heart rate up a little bit. I like to just some easy air squats, stuff you guys have probably done a ton in your training, especially if you've worked with us. Just those nice, you know how to do this by now, the toes straight ahead, knees pressing out, and just getting a little movement in here. It doesn't have to be super low, but just starting to get a little up and down going, you'll start to feel the heart rate go up. You can increase the speed a little bit, maybe going for a set of 20 or so. You can do 2 or 3 sets if you want. Just like this. And then now once the whole body is starting to get warmed up, you can stretch out the calves at this point, because next we're going to do a few little passes of some drills and running. So I really just like to post up, either get a foot up on a curb or just pressing against something and stretching that calf behind, as well as bending the leg to get the Achilles. Spend about 45 seconds to a minute on both sides, get those calves warmed up. In the next section, I'll show you how we're going to get that heart rate up before we start. Okay guys, so the last part of this warm-up puzzle is going to be actually moving, starting to get those feet under you, doing a couple passes back and forth. We'll do some drills as well as just some easy jogging. So I like to pick an area that you're hopefully not weaving in and out of runners, so kind of separate yourself from the main area where everyone's sitting or getting ready, and just find a little stretch that you can start getting sweating on. So the first one, I just want you to do an easy jog, so just something nice and light, getting that arm swing dialed in, starting to get those feet picked up under you. You can go for about 100 meters or so, something like that, a little bit further than this, and then you can jog back just the same exact way. The second pass I'll have you do is going to be those high knees. You're only going to go for the 100 meters out, and then you'll jog back easy. So the high knees, we like to just really start to engage those hips. They're warmed up now. Start kind of small and then get a little bit bigger. So I'll show you what that looks like. Starting to pick those knees up just like this. Starting to get those feet activated underneath and a little bit higher, maybe a little bit faster. Okay guys, so if that whole 100-meter stretch is too much on those high knees, take a little break in the middle, but do continue all the way so you get the full stretch of those high knees, again, altering the speed, the pace of that, and how high you're going. You'll jog back, and then the last pass you're gonna do is gonna be butt kickers. So again, you can start small, not going all the way up, but the idea here is to start getting those quads stretched out and learning how to, and activating those hamstrings on how they're gonna pick up for the run. So starting small, trying to keep everything in line, parallel. As I get a little bit more warmed up, I can start kicking them higher, higher. You can always put your hands back here so you can feel if it's getting up or not. I'm kicking up sand everywhere. But you'll do a 100-meter pass of those. You'll start to feel hamstrings will be firing. If they're not, something's wrong. You want to make sure all the hips are squeezed forward, glutes are firing, calves should be on at that point, and then you'll jog back for the remainder. If you want to do one more pass of jogging, that's fine. You want to be sure you're sweating, moving a little bit, so that when you get to that start, heart rate is already elevated or has already been elevated. Time this so that you still have 10 or 15 minutes before you actually start. So you've done your warm up, then you have the last 10, 15 minutes, one last time in the restroom, one last sip of water, you're in the corral if there is one before you go, and you have nothing to worry about when you go through that start. So go through those logistics, take everything with a grain of salt, especially if it's your first race. Everybody has a first race, so don't be panicked, and plan as best as you can, and you should have an awesome half marathon. Guys, if you're looking for more ways to nail that first half marathon, we have a free half marathon guide for you, 44 pages, in depth, everything you need to know about getting to that half marathon start line in a healthy way, how to train, how to warm up, how to find the right training plan, everything you need. Just put in your name and email, we will send that to you. It is totally free. If you liked this video, make sure you hit that like button down at the bottom. If you have a comment or question, something that didn't make sense, drop that in the comments below. We love getting back to you there. And lastly, make sure you subscribe to the Run Experience channel. We have new stuff coming out almost every day of the week these days, and we want you to see those videos, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. That is all I've got for you today. We will see you in the next video.